Hello everybody, Todd again. This is day 2. It's kind of a open format, so I'm going to do whatever the hell I want with it. But today I'm going to start off with a couple things that make me hopeful. I think that this disease isn't all bad, and I think that it's important to keep focus on the things that are going well right now, because there's so much ingenuity happening and so much creativity. And I think that we'll emerge on the other side of this with that same spirit. So first of all, I just wanted to I think it's propelling schools forward. I think that's really cool because students and teachers are both learning about how students can still learn at home. And so I think that homework, I remember especially as a kid, I thought that homework was just broken as a system, and I still think it's the case. But I just think it's cool that the school system is learning a lot of new things, especially in areas like my home state of Massachusetts, where I'm speaking with my nephew and learning these things. But they're doing so many cool things down there with regards to remote learning. So anyway, I also think that it's really cool that the government, that Americans are sort of reminded through this that the government can do big things again. I mean, it's been so long since anything that's happened. It's always gridlock. I don't care what side of the spectrum you're on. Everyone's sort of thinks that things can be done a little bit better, and right now I think it's sort of a breath of fresh air, at least for me, to see that our political system can move quickly and can make big decisions when those decisions have to be made, and I think that that's a very reassuring thing as an American citizen. So another hot take there. But yeah, again, I'm in Key West here, and so I have a Key West perspective, and it's still hard to sense because I've decided to quarantine myself, but it's pretty hard to sense the way that the virus is going to get around our particular community. So I wanted to talk about a few different things and just sort of get everyone on the same page about why this stupid virus is so damn tricky, right? And the whole idea is going to end up in this whole concept I have called the social multiplier, which I think is interesting, probably needs some work, but it's a unique way of thinking about things. So first of all, you get the virus, right? You touch a surface, and then I touch my mouth, my nose, my eye, boom. Or somebody sneezes, and then I'm really close to them, and I breathe it in, and then it gets in my mucous membrane and gets into my system, right? It's important to remember that this disease needs humans to travel. It will always eventually die, unless it has a human that it can get to. So that's can survive up to 24 hours on most surfaces. And I've heard some people say that it can survive up to at least 72 hours on stainless steel. So I think that's under perfect circumstances. But nonetheless, if this thing sticks around. So anyway, say I get it, right? Then the first thing that would happen is the virus would incubate. And I'm going to talk about the average case. I'm going to assume that I'm an average person and that, I don't have any underlying health conditions. And I'm just a basic normal person. Most of the people who get this are just going to be regular people doing their daily stuff. And so that's kind of what I'm going to characterize, and then I'll kind of qualify it after. But anyway, as a normal person, the virus will take 5 days where it incubates in my system. So during that time, the virus is just taken over. It's snuck in. I show no symptoms, right? I don't know I have it, symptomless. But the virus itself is working inside my body, and basically it just starts taking it over and reproducing itself, right? But in the beginning, it's infiltrating for 5 days, right? And so that's a good thing because it's good for our healthcare system, and it's a good thing because we can make decisions well ahead of time, which is kind of the purpose of what we're doing here, to sort of stop it from doing that. But also one of the negatives is that it takes a really long time for it to unfold in communities. So it's really, most of the time, it's spread around before people even know. Now, okay, so that 5 days is up. The newest studies of groups of people have shown that at least 50%, those are the newest numbers as of today, because I do nothing but tune into all the stuff related to all the science and politics, and I just think it's fascinating and fun. So it's my morning routine. But they have found that 50% of people show no symptoms or unbelievably mild symptoms. So that is 50%. And that means that, so it's incubated, it's done, right? Now I'm what's called shedding the virus, which means that I can cough it out, I can wipe it on things, I can do whatever, I can spread it, right, as a person who has it now. So for the next, generally speaking, 5 days, right? Actually 6 days. They say day 11 is when 98% of people definitely show some noticeable symptoms, right? So day 11, it's like basically you know you have it. If you're 11 days in and you start showing, in some cases this is mild circumstance, mild, but you still you see it. You get the sneeze, something, right? And we'll also get into what the symptoms are, but just be in 1 second. So virus incubates, right? And then after 5 days, you can spread it around, and again, 5 days is average. Some days, some people it's 4, some people it's 6, but generally speaking, it's going to be 5. And then, it takes another X amount of time to spread through around. And then, so here's the timeline we're talking about, and this is why it can be tricky. So I get it, and I'm actually a super healthy person. So I have a great immune system too, and it's pretty likely that I would be the type of person who doesn't show very many symptoms. It's just, that's the way it is. So I get it. 5 days, I can't share it, and then I might get such mild symptoms that I just think that I'm, it's just in my head. These little things. More than likely, that's how I would approach it. Just because I wouldn't like to be an alarmist about these things. And so during that time, I would be able to go out and spread it. If I were to sneeze, anyone within 6 feet of me could breathe it in. Actually, and another important thing too, I heard this one the other day, and again, this is an extreme, in perfect circumstances. And what I say is, I grew up on a cranberry farm, and we had these pump houses, and there was no ventilation, no circulation. It was just a freaking house with some pumps in it, and it was just, it's like an unused shed, and it's dark, and it's humid in there, whatever. But if you sneeze, right, if I were to sneeze in there, and it's not even 6 feet, so it's like if I were to sneeze in there, then my germs, the virus, would float around in the air, and it would float for 3 hours. So if I were to go in there and I were to sneeze, then my dad came 2 hours later and then went in there, which would never happen, but you get it. Then he would be able to breathe it in, and there's a chance that he would get it. Now, it's also important to remind everybody that this is a lot less likely. This is the least amount of cases of the ones that you breathe it in. It's just it's unlikely, but knowing the circumstances that it's more likely to happen, I think is beneficial. So that's what I learned. And then, all right, so then what are the symptoms, right? Tricky. I just heard some news this morning, and it was a family of 4. They all had the coronavirus, and they're on day 12 right now. Now, the husband, he got it because he was on a book tour. He was going around New York, LA, Seattle. He was going everywhere, right? All the big places, and then a whole bunch of other little ones. And so he got it, and then he gave it to his wife and his kids. Now, he said with his kids, he wouldn't have known if it was just a bad cold, right? That's all it was for them, was just, a cold that there wasn't even any real concern. It was just like, oh, they'll get over it. It sucks for right now, but it's just, sort of miserable symptoms. And of course, they were self-quarantining. The wife wasn't even sure that they had the coronavirus because her symptoms were the most mild. And the husband, who was a little bit older, was convinced. He said that he had a certain tightness of breath. He couldn't tell a story without sort of being able to feel like he had just run a long distance. And basically, like, his lungs just weren't doing as well as they would. I mean, plus there was some light various other symptoms. But the whole point is that this virus is extremely tricky. It's so good at infiltrating because it has a whole variety of symptoms that people can have. I mean, there's the most creepy one of you don't smell or taste, right? No one in that whole family, by the way, said that they lost their sense of smell or taste, when they were coming out with the disease, which is one of those common popular things that people are talking about now. But it is, apparently a symptom. Sometimes it's people sneezing, sometimes it's people coughing. It's usually with other disease, usually you get it and you're getting, sneezing and coughing is because of what it's doing to your lungs, not because of the disease itself. So it's just everyone's body reacts to it differently. And there's a whole slew of symptoms and a whole slew of immense, at a whole slew of intensity, right? And so yeah, basically, so what is the social multiplier, right? This is an interesting idea that I've been thinking about. And basically, first of all, this is only a concept. It's not science, it's not anything. It's just because I have a philosophy degree and I think too much about stupid shit. But there is a social multiplier that I think that some people who are still insisting on being social in a time like this. I personally, I have 2 roommates, but I personally stay at my house basically the whole day. Actually, every morning I get on my scooter and I scoot around. I don't get within 6 feet of anybody. I don't touch anything. I just kind of scoot around and just look around. I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. But I haven't been meeting in groups with anybody, essentially. But I think that there are still people who are. And to those people, I would like to say that the virus needs people to spread. And so, right now, all the big things are done. Schools, where, schools are arguably the biggest way that disease gets spread through community. Those are all closed. They've been closed for a while. All the big stuff, businesses, bars, spaces. So it's like the coronavirus is still going to penetrate our community. And it is, it just is going to, it already is. We went from 3 cases yesterday to 11 cases today. I mean, and it's just going to keep climbing as we get tests available, as the tests that have been done come back, and whatever. So we have to remember that the tests, right? So let's just think about this really quick as a community. Let's do the math. If 11 people have come up, tests came back, 7 tests came back yesterday saying, yes, we have at least 7 people that have the coronavirus. Those tests took a couple days. So let's add at least, at minimum 3 days, but probably more, right? I'm not a freaking test person, but I know that these things, you'd have to send them off to somewhere that can process them, and then that would get back to you, and there's been a backlog all over the country. But 3 days would be the time that they would tell you and likely take longer, right? So there's 3 days right there. Those people would have, the 50% of those people will have been showing, they probably all shown symptoms because they've been given the test, which means that there's probably more people that are showing super mild symptoms that aren't even allowed to have the test yet, but still have the virus. It's another reason why there could be more people in the community. So it's 3 days, and then those people had incubated for 5 days, right? So that's 8 total days. And then on top of that, a lot of people don't show symptoms until day 10, right? So they could have had it for at least 10 days before getting a test, right? So some of those people, which then took 3 days to come back. So that means that, throwing a ball out there, this place, they got it 15 days ago, and we're just finding out today, which means that there's a big gap right there. And the virus is using that gap to move around and to spread. And so the social multiplier is an idea. It's basically, first of all, this virus is going to spread whether or not we do anything. Even if we all take the strictest, most measures and only go to the grocery store once every 5 days, and only one person in the household that does that, and we close everything down, right, like they do in China, that would absolutely reverse the cases in this area and turn it into a known problem, and is eventually potentially where we're going to have to go. But that's a whole different video. Basically, we need to, it's been here for a while, it's spreading through social activity, and the more people that you are around, the more likely you are to get it, right? So let's put, I got social multiplier, I'm going to put time underneath when I actually get to the concept. But basically, my social multiplier would be in the last 5 days, right? Because that is the time that I know at the very least the virus could be incubating inside me, right? So I could have got it in the last 5 days and I wouldn't be showing any symptoms. So in the last 5 days, how many people have I hung out with on a voluntary basis? Meaning I didn't have to go see them, right? I didn't have to go to the grocery store, which, I might have to, I had to do to get groceries, because I actually have 2.5 months of groceries, probably a little too much, but I went overboard and had fun. But the point is so how many people over the last 5 days? Because this is of course exponential. This is where the math comes in again. It's like, okay, so you have hung out closely with 5 people over the last 5 days. Well, guess what? Those people have also hung out with 5 other people, right? And then, so that's 25 total people, 25 total potential people that could have had it, right? And then you go 3 layers, and it's like, well, those 25 people all probably hung out with 5 other people. And so the whole, it's exponential, meaning like, over the course of 5 days, the higher your social multiplier, the exponentially higher chance that you have it. So every additional person that you choose to hang out with that is that you don't know where they've been or who they're around, and they're not home quarantining, and they're not, like, for example, the only person that you're allowing, right? Like, if you have a child, obviously, you know, they are part of your closed group of people that are only interacting with each other. But if you're hanging out with people that you don't know where they've been, then for every one of those people that you're interacting with, your chances of getting the virus are exponential, which means that it's those sort of interactions at this point that are going to be spreading it around our community, plain and simple, period. I mean, at least that's what we have control over, right? So it's going to spread because of a whole variety of reasons, and there's nothing we can do about it. But we have to focus on what we can control and at least be mindful of your number, right? So if I've been hanging out with a lot of people, then, and I have a very high social, social multiplier, then that just means that, you know, say my social multiplier is 7, right? I've hung out with 7 people over the last 5 days. Then I am, you know, assuming that all those 5 people have hung out, that's 7 to the 5th exponent. That's an enormous amount of potential ways that, you know, of course the virus will be moving. You know, you can look at the virus and how it's spread as a giant network, and the virus uses those little interactions to spread around, and you can just see it. From a data perspective, I wish that I had something to visualize, help you visualize it, but you're essentially creating the highway that the virus is using to spread through every new person that you interact with. So everyone that you choose to do is basically just creating the highway and building the way that the coronavirus is going to penetrate in our community in a way that's unsustainable. And also, let me just say that here in Key West, from what I understand, we're sending most of our people to Miami because that's the only area that would be able to deal with it. So as new people get it, we're going to be sending them out of town. So it's also going to continually feel like that it's not really going on here. There's not too much. You know, everyone who has it's under home quarantine. It's going to keep feeling that way, but it's just going to keep spreading. And so we just need to be mindful of that. You know, like if you really absolutely feel like you can responsibly go and hang out with other people, say you have a close network of friends, and you are sure that those friends aren't taking any unnecessary risks of hanging out with these sort of high-risk people, then you're good, you know? But in reality, here's the fun way of thinking about it. It's like hanging out with people right now is sort of like an STD, right? It's like, so imagine that every person that I'm recreationally hanging out with, it's as if I'm banging them, right? But the reality is, like, there's an STD going around, and everyone who is interacting and hanging out within 6 feet of each other in a non-necessary basis, they're essentially banging, and they're giving the virus an opportunity to be spreading around. So those sorts of people, you know, and here's the important part too. As a community, we can't judge those people. They're just doing their best. If they had all the information, then I really do believe that a lot of those people would change their behaviors, but some of those people would continue to do what they're going to do because they think they're doing it in a responsible way. And that I completely trust and completely understand. So we need to remember not to judge any of the people that this is happening to, and just be mindful of how your interactions and your interactions with the world can create a path to spread it or can refuse to let it come into our community. So anyway, thank you for your time. This has been a long one. I don't even know what to call it. Probably should structure the next one a little bit better, but I'm just fucking around creating a YouTube channel. I've never done this anyway. So anyway, you guys have a lovely day. Yeah. Oh, and also really quick, this is my setup. Look at that. So you get some sun, you get the little mirror, and yeah. Anyway, cool. Bye.